Hey guys, this is Matt Invictus. About a year ago, I uploaded a video about the DC Cinematic Universe, which I see as the official start of this channel, even though I actually created it years earlier to watch videos with mature content. Since then, I've accumulated over 3,600 views and uploaded 36 videos, the most popular being Riri Williams, the irredeemable Iron Man. I may have earned a reputation for being a snarky pessimist who hates everything, a label which I take full responsibility for, but the truth is, I love comics, I love movies and video games, and all kinds of art, and the only reason I criticize these things so heavily is because I want them to be good. And to prove it, I made a long list of comics that I love and think everyone should read. Let's start with everyone's favorite neglected team of superheroes, the X-Men. One of the best Marvel books of all time has to be Astonishing X-Men from 2004, written by Joss Whedon back when he was good. Astonishing has a great cast including Wolverine and Cyclops, an epic plot, and is a good jumping on point for anyone who wants to read X-Men comics. There's also Chris Claremont's massive X-Men run that lasted from 1975 to 1991. This era introduced badass mutants like Rogue, Emma Frost, and Gambit, and gave us iconic storylines like the Dark Phoenix Saga and Inferno. Claremont's work is essential reading for any Marvel fan, especially if you're disappointed by the current X-Men books, which, let's face it, you probably are. You might also have been disappointed by the last Wolverine book, starring Laura Kinney, which sucks because X-23 was actually really damn good. Laura is a clone of Wolverine raised to be a killer, and predictably, has some serious issues to deal with. Her solo run was one of the stronger X books of the last decade, and definitely worth a read, even if you hate what X-23 eventually turned into. Image Comics is mostly known for either terrible action books in the 90s or their modern non-superhero comics, but they also published a popular superhero book called Invincible. It's like a mix of Superman and Spiderman with lots of drama and superhero satire thrown in, and while some of the art looks very kid-friendly, it's actually very mature. Do not let small children read this. The Alien and Predator films haven't been good for decades, but the next best thing would be their comic series published by Dark Horse. These books have all the suspense, cool characters, space horror, and badass aliens that you wish the movies were still capable of pulling off. The Alien vs. Predator comics are also worth reading, and show us what those movies could have been if they weren't so bad. My favorite Flash comic has got to be Return of Barry Allen. That might come as a surprise since I don't like Barry Allen at all. In fact, I hate him, but it's still possible to enjoy this story even if you hate or love the title character. It's definitely more for Wally West fans though, which is good because Flash fact, Wally is a superior Flash. It's not easy to make a good team book, especially when the cast is all teenagers, which is why something like Young Avengers is so satisfying, at least the original series was. This book covers a lot of ground with its teenage heroes, and never comes off as forced or preachy or like a bunch of insufferable hipsters. Again, just the original series. I'd love to see more of these characters with a writer who understands them, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Another great team book with the word young in its title is Young Justice. I obviously love the cartoon, but this is about the comic from the 90s. Like the show, the comic has a well-defined cast and a strong team dynamic, but tends to focus on more over-the-top and cartoony stories. The original Young Justice series is brilliant and also better than any Teen Titans comic ever. Yeah, I said that. Modern Batman comics are dull, poorly plotted, and disgraceful to Batman's legacy. On the flip side of all that is No Man's Land, a storyline from the late 90s that lasted over a year and connected all the Bat books at the time. The entire saga is collected in 7 volumes. Despite its length, almost all the issues are good, and the story keeps you interested from start to finish. It really is a masterwork of planning and execution. If 7 volumes is too long for you, then I'd recommend The Killing Joke. Written by comics legend Alan Moore, this iconic Joker story is definitely for fans of the more creepy and surreal side of Batman. It's so dark that Moore himself has tried to distance himself from it, but don't let that turn you off. He just doesn't realize how brilliant he is. Even more interesting than Batman are some of his supporting characters, like Tim Drake, the third Robin. At a time when most Spider-Man comics were garbage, Robin was closer to Peter Parker than the actual Peter Parker was. His book was a perfect mix of superhero plots and everyday teenage problems, and is definitely one of the higher quality Batman spin-offs. It's too bad DC no longer sees value in this character. Deadpool has always been fucking hilarious, but I think he's at his best when paired up with Cable, an over-muscled telepathic soldier from the future. Deadpool and Cable is a solid action comedy book that does a fine job combining Deadpool's batshit crazy humor with Cable's more serious plots, and in case you're wondering, yes, I'm looking forward to their team up on film. DC has a surprisingly hard time pulling off the Justice League. even though they shouldn't, but it would be hard to top Grant Morrison's JLA run that started in 1997. The plotlines are good, the team dynamic is great, and it has the best lineup of a Justice League comic ever. I doubt any of the upcoming Justice League books will be as good as this one. The true love of Peter Parker's life is Mary Jane Watson, and anyone who disagrees with me is wrong. Spider-Man Parallel Lives details the evolving relationship of this iconic couple from before they met to right after their marriage. It's so well done, you'd wonder why anyone would want to split up this relationship, but we all know what happened. Not many would expect a Spider-Man story to be dark and gritty to the point that it borders on horror, and also really damn good on top of that, but Kraven's Last Hunt is all of those things. It features Spidey going up against underrated villain and Russian powerhouse Kraven the Hunter, and delivers one of the more unpredictable stories in the web-slinger's history. Elseworld stories aren't easy to pull off, but Kingdom Come is considered to be one of the better and more memorable Elseworlds tales. The highlight of this book is the art by Alex Ross, but the writing isn't bad either. It's an immersive look at a future where the old guard of heroes starts clashing with the new ones, and despite its short length, contains lots of world building and iconic moments. You all know about the V for Vendetta movie that came out in 2005, but less people have read the comic book released in 1988, which sucks because the comic is superior to the movie in every conceivable way. Another work by the legendary Alan Moore, it's a gloriously dark and morally ambiguous tale that understands how to do political themes correctly. It's easily one of Moore's best works and even rivals Watchmen in terms of quality. One of DC's strong points has always been their great secondary characters, the ones that aren't quite A-listers but still deserve recognition, like Power Girl. Everything about this girl is huge, from her brain, to her powers, to her attitude, all very big. Her solo book didn't last long, but it was pretty entertaining and had some fun adventures. We need to see more of Power Girl and her tremendous talents. While on the topic of secondary characters, DC once did a year-long weekly series focusing on lesser-known heroes called 52. While it did have appearances from big names like Lex Luthor and Batman, 52 was mostly about obscure characters like Steel, the Elongated Man, Black Adam, and Booster Gold. The intersecting plotlines cover a variety of genres, from dark and gritty to campy and lighthearted, so you never know what you're going to get while reading it. The most recent book on this list is Superman Rebirth, which, as of this recording, just wrapped up. After years of awkward or terrible stories, DC finally managed to give us a Superman that worked. He was heroic, slightly corny, and most importantly, he was likable. If you like kid characters more than I do, I'd also recommend its companion book, Super Sons. And after the Superman run by Brian Michael Bendis is out, I promise that this Superman will seem even better by comparison. And with that, we're done. Comics may suck right now, but they will always have the potential to be good, and I hope the people making them eventually realize that their fans aren't evil, and that there's nothing wrong with fun escapist fiction and respecting superhero legacies. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe. Good night, everybody.